All right, we're back with Amy Ann Allinger and Trey trying to get all of the students in school to fill out requests for reconsideration forms on all the books to show that any book can be banned. So let's go ahead and start. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Rebecca came to see me right before lunch, which was good because I needed help. The bathroom was full of girls from 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, all carrying stacks of books and filling out forms. They'd all gotten bathroom passes from their different homerooms and come to the bathroom at the same time. It's hysterical, Rebecca told me as she helped a 3rd grader fill out her form. Every time somebody comes back from the bathroom, somebody immediately raises their hand to ask if they can go. And you should see the library. Half the books are gone from the shelves. There's a line of kids checking out armfuls of books. And new lady, the not Mrs. Jones, she's about to have a heart attack. She hasn't had any time to read her celebrity magazine, but she can't get mad because checking out books is her job. A library without books in it, just the thought of it gave me shivers. But that was exactly the point. We were going to show that once you ban one book, you could ban all of them. And then there wouldn't be any books left to read. Check them all out. I told Rebecca, oh, and we need more copies of the request for reconsideration form. That meant we had already challenged almost 1,000 books. That was way more than Rebecca and Danny and Trey and I had been able to do by ourselves. I'll get Danny on it, she said. I'll check in with Trey. He's over there banning as many books as you are. You know, Jeffrey Gonzalez, Space Cadet Jeff, I helped him come up with reasons to ban each and every one of the Star Wars books. For what? Are you kidding? The Rebel Alliance are basically terrorists. They blow up the Death Star at the end of the Star Wars. You know how many people must have been in that station? Thousands. That's mass murder. The bathroom door clunked open and the voice I dreaded hearing all day boomed loud to be heard over the chatter. What's going on in here? Principal Bemwowski said. I squeaked and dragged Rebecca with me into the last stall at the end. We could hear the sound of footsteps as half the girls in the bathroom hid in the stalls and the other half ran for the exit. Every teacher tells me there's a sudden run to the bathroom today, Principal Bemwowski said, walking up and down the front of the closed stall doors. She knocked on one of the other stall doors. What are you doing in there? Just going to the bathroom, Sophia Marin said from inside the stall. The principal's footsteps came closer to our stall. I pushed Rebecca down on the seat and I hopped up onto her lap in case Detective Bemwowski started looking under the stall doors. Rebecca winced. Principal Bemwowski knocked on the door to our stall, making us both jump. Who's in here? Rebecca and I looked at each other in horror. Finally, I nudged her. She had to be the one to talk. I was supposed to be homesick. Rebecca Zimmerman, she said. Rebecca, I think it's your time to get back to class. Rebecca and I shared a panicked look. But I have a pass, Rebecca said. I think you've been gone from class long enough, Principal Bemwowski said. The lunch bell rang, making us jump again, and the hallway outside filled with the sound of squeaking shoes, slamming lockers, and laughing students. Well, now that it's lunch period, I'm not technically missing class anymore, Rebecca said. She was really going to make a great lawyer one day. Principal Bemwowski sighed as more girls poured into the bathroom. Like mere Mrs. Jones in the library, she really couldn't get mad at students using the bathroom during lunch. That's when we were supposed to use the bathroom. From now on, please wait till lunchtime to use the bathroom if you can, Miss Zimmerman. Yes, ma'am, Rebecca said in her sweetest voice. We waited until Principal Bemwowski was gone, and Rebecca and I slumped back against the toilet in relief. Tell everybody to cool it with the bathroom requests, I told her as she slipped out of the stall and the next book banner slipped inside. And don't forget to get me more forms. Good intentions. When Trey, Rebecca, and Danny and I met up after school, we had so many requests for reconsideration forms we had to split them up between us to get them home. There must be 5,000 banned books here. Easy, Trey said. Count them up tonight. I want to know, Rebecca said. Dude, the library looks like a tornado hit it, Danny said. There's hardly anything left in the fiction section. It was crazy. The four of us had only been able to fill out 500 forms in 4 days, and one day, with the help of all the students at school, we'd blown that number through the roof. We were going to be plunked plunking down a 3-foot tall stack of requests for reconsideration forms in front of the school board members. Mrs. Spencer wasn't going to know what hit her. "So, we're all going to be there tonight, right?" I said. We made sure everyone had a ride and said our goodbyes until tonight. Even though I carried 10 pounds of paper in my backpack, I felt like I was walking on air. I made my way down to the second grade hall to meet up with Alexis. She usually took the first bus home, while I took the late bus. But all that was over now, with my parents had figured out I wasn't staying behind to be a part of the after-school club. I was going to have to start taking the early bus with Alexis, but that was next week. This week, Mom and Dad were taking turns picking us up from school. Alexis was on the little kids' playground climbing around on the monkey bars. I hadn't been out there since I was little, and everything was different. All the old junky equipment had been replaced by new stuff. It was like a little playground city. New swings, 2 new slides, 1 double wide, a curly cue to climb on, and a pole to slide down, monkey bars to swing across, and a little gazebo thing with a spinning tic-tac-toe game on it. There were even these little speaking tubes sticking up out of the ground. You could talk into one side and hear it across the playground. And covering the old hard dirt ground that used to turn into mud when it rained was a thick layer of chopped up rubber pieces. It squished when you walked on it. The new playground was pretty neat. I wish we'd had it when I was in second grade. I read the sign next to the entrance. Donated in memory of Miss Emily Briggs by the Shelburne Elementary PTA. Miss Sarah Spencer, President. Miss Sarah Spencer, Trey's mom. The book banner. She raised money for a new lower school playground as president of the Parent-Teacher Association. I stood and stared at the sign for a long time. How was the woman who banned books from the library the same person who bought the little kids a new playground? Dad pulled up and honked the horn. I waved to him and yelled, "Alexis, Dad's here!" Alexis ran up and red-faced. "Cool playground," I said. "It's the best playground ever," she said. "Got your book bag?" I reminded her. She found it and we climbed into Dad's truck. I stared out the window at the shiny new playground equipment as we pulled away. Donated by the Shelburne Elementary PTA, Mrs. Sarah Spencer, President. It had been so easy to think that Mrs. Spencer was a villain, but coming up with all those reasons to ban books had made me start to see things from her point of view. It didn't mean I thought she was right, but I was beginning to see how she might have thought she was doing something good for us, even though she was wrong. In which I speak up. The room where the school board met was a very different place this time. All the seats on both sides of the aisles were filled, and the partition had to be taken down and new chairs brought in to fit everybody. Most of the kids from my class were there with at least one of their parents, and I saw kids from other classes and other grades too. 2 local camera crews were set up along the back wall, and they were already doing interviews with some of the kids who came. One of them recognized me when I came in with my family, but Dad put his hand up and said, "No comment." I did have a comment, lots of comments in fact, but I was saving them for the meeting. Mrs. Jones was there, wearing a big pink and white polka-dotted dress, and she broke away from the interview she was doing with a reporter to come over and swallow me up in a giant hug. "Oh, Amy Ann, it's so good to see you," she said. I immediately teared up. "Mrs. Jones, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get you fired." "It's not your fault at all," Mrs. Jones said. "I couldn't go on the way things were going much longer anyhow. I knew it was coming. I'm very proud of what you did, and I don't want you to regret it one bit." "But I got in trouble. I got a lot of people in trouble," I said. "Well-behaved women seldom make history," Mrs. Jones said with a smile. "Consider this your first taste of behaving badly in the name of what is right." She hugged me again. "Are you planning on talking tonight?" she asked me. "I'm already signed up," I told her. She nodded her approval and then excused herself to go back to her interview. On the far side of the room, I saw Mrs. Spencer taking a seat. She was wearing another pretty skirt and jacket, light blue this time, and right beside her was Trey, wearing a tie. I couldn't believe it. He caught me looking at him and gave me a thumbs up sign, where his mom couldn't see it. Rebecca ran up to me while her parents said hello to each other. She dressed up too. She was wearing gray slacks and a gray jacket, with a white button-down shirt underneath. "You have a suit?" I asked. "Of course," Rebecca said. "Every lawyer needs a good suit." I was feeling distinctly underdressed. I was just wearing one of my sundresses with a ribbon tied around one of my braids. "You got yours?" Rebecca asked. I patted the backpack sitting in my chair. "Yep." I said. You? Rebecca heaved a big briefcase and smiled. The meeting was called to order, and Mom, Dad, Alexis, Angelina, and I found seats. Mom and Dad had decided to bring all of us, and Alexis in particular wasn't happy about it. She was missing ballet practice to be here, and she plopped herself down in her seat with her arms crossed to show how she felt. She was a grouch, but after my blow up last night, she at least wasn't complaining about it out loud. The school board read out what had happened last time when I wasn't there and talked about what they were going to talk about tonight. Then it was time for public comment. I took a deep breath. My name was first on the list. I made sure of it. I stood, my legs shaking worse than when I had been called to the principal's office the first time, and my mom squeezed my hand in support. I hadn't been able to do this the first time I'd been to a school board meeting, but I was going to do it now. I nodded to Rebecca and Danny, and they stood to join me in the podium. Miss Spencer was shocked when Trey stood up and joined us too. Only one speaker at a time, please, one of the school board members said. I'll do all the talking for them, I said. I had told them. My heart felt like it was in my throat, and it was hard to squeeze the words out past, but it got easier the more I did it. I'm Amy Ann Ollinger, President and Chief Librarian of the BBLL. The BBLL? A school board member asked. The Banned Books Locker Library. That caught a ripple of commotion throughout the audience, and I could feel the bright lights of the television cameras on me. It almost was too much. I wanted to duck down underneath the podium and never come out again, but I clung to the sides of it instead, using it to hold me up. The chairman of the school board banged his gavel for quiet. We're not going to hear any more arguments for keeping removed books on the shelf, he told us. We've already had that discussion. No, I said. We're not here to try and get those books back, I said. We're here with more challenges. That was the cue. Danny, Trey, and I opened our backpacks, and Rebecca opened her briefcase. Each of us pulled out a huge pile of papers and carried them up to the round table in the front, stacking them on top of each other so they would look really impressive. Behind us, I could hear cameras snapping and more whispers and questions. What is this? A chairman asked. I went back to the microphone. Request for reconsideration forms, I told him. We think there are more books we shouldn't be able to read. The school board members started taking sheets from the big stack. Each one was for a different book. I'd made sure. But there must be 1,000 books here, one of them said. 7,541, I said. It wasn't every book in the library, not even half, but it had put a serious dent in the shelves. That number got a big response from the audience, and the chairman had to gavel them quiet again. These are a joke, one of the school board members said. You want us to ban a math textbook? It has imaginary numbers in it, I said. We're afraid that will encourage kids to have imaginary friends. The audience laughed, and I felt better about talking. My hands relaxed at the podium. Here's one challenging the dictionary, said another board member. Danny leaned into the microphone. Oh, that book is full of dirty words. I looked them all up. He turned to the camera behind them, ran his fingers through his hair, and smiled a $1 million smile. Danny Purcell, he said. 2 N's, 2 L's. Magic Treehouse, said another board member. Challenge for building code violations? Mrs. Spencer stood and huffed. Your Honor, this is clearly a joke. Can we move on? My dad stood up. Oh, no, he said. I work in construction. I've seen those books. That tree house doesn't have any handrails, and you can see from the picture those floor joists aren't anywhere near 12 inches apart. That got another laugh and stirred everybody up again. Mr. Chairman, Miss Spencer called over the ruckus. Mr. Chairman, I move that these new challenges be ignored so we can get to real business. You can't make a motion during a public comment, Rebecca said into the microphone. Besides, she's not even supposed to be talking. You said only one speaker at a time. And who are you? The chairman asked. Rebecca Zimmerman, legal counsel for the BBLL, Rebecca said importantly. Then surely her time is up, Miss Spencer said. The chairman looked relieved. It is up, I'm afraid. You're going to have to take a seat, Miss Ollinger. He continued his list, and his voice turned wearily. Rebecca Zimmerman's turn to speak. Rebecca leaned into the microphone. I respectfully cede my remaining time to Amy Ann Ollinger. The chairman of the school board covered his mic, but everyone in the room could hear him ask the other members, "Can she do that? Is that allowed?" "It's in the Robert's Rules of Order," Rebecca told him. "And the next 12 names are all Shelburne Elementary students who are going to cede their time to Amy Ann, so you're going to have to listen to what she has to say." The kids who'd signed up to speak stood up, scattered in different rows around the room. Rebecca's mom and dad, both wearing suits, gave her big smiles and a double thumbs up. "Your Honor," I said, charging ahead before they could tell me to sit down, "you have to ban these books." "We have to do no such thing," the chairman said. "Most of these challenges are for silly reasons." "Silly to you, maybe. All the reasons are silly to someone else, and we think the challenges to the books already removed are silly. What makes one person's reason any sillier than another person's reason?" That got them quiet, and the quiet made me nervous again. I desperately wanted to suck on my braids, but I knew I couldn't. Not here. I gripped the podium harder. "You took the Egypt game off the library shelves because one person didn't like the kids pretending to worship an Egyptian god. You took Junie B. Jones off the shelf because one person didn't like the way she talks. You took my favorite book in the whole wide world, From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, off the shelves because one person thought it taught kids to lie and cheat and run away from home, even though I'd never cheated on anything." I hoped they would notice how I had left out lie and run away from home and pushed on. "You can't have it both ways. If you ban those books because one person had a problem with them, you have to ban all these too. Because we found one person who had a problem with each of them, and when you're done, there isn't going to be a single book left on the Shelburne Elementary shelves. But I guess that's okay with you. The Wake County School Board doesn't want its students to read any books that scare them or teach them or entertain them or show them new things or make them sad or happy or shock them or open their minds, which is all of them." The room was dead quiet now, except for the hum of the TV cameras. The school board members looked pale under the fluorescent lights in the ceiling, or maybe that was because the TV cameras, too. Miss Spencer spoke up. She had never sat down. "This is silly," she said. "Those books were removed from the Shelburne Elementary Library for good reason, because they were harmful. Each and every one of those encouraged bad behavior for one kind or another. I think we can all agree that none of us want our entire generation of Shelburne Elementary students growing up to be menaces to society, just because some book they read in 4th grade showed them how." Rebecca was about to say something, probably to remind the school board that there was only supposed to be one speaker at a time, but I put my hand on her arm to stop her. "So all those books you challenged," I said to Mrs. Spencer. "If I read one of those books, I would grow up to be a bad person?" "I'd say the chances are good, yes." I was ready for this. I could feel every eye in the room on me, waiting to hear what I would say, waiting for me, Amy Ann Ollinger, to speak up. "Mrs. Spencer, one of the first books you banned was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Have you ever read it?" One or two people in the room coughed. They knew the book talked about embarrassing stuff you didn't talk about in a big room full of people, the things that happen to girls' bodies when they become a teenager. Miss Spencer blushed. "No, of course not." I looked right at her. "Are you sure?" Miss Spencer raised herself up. "I am sure I didn't." "That's funny," I said, "because I've got this old date due card from Shelburne Elementary copy, and it's got your signature on here from 1982. The audience gasped and giggled as I held up the card I'd found in the back of the library's old copy of Are You There, Margaret? Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. The color drained from Mrs. Spencer's face. "Well, I might have checked it out once, but when I saw what it was, I didn't read it," Miss Spencer said. 5 times, I asked. That got a big laugh from the audience. The TV reporters were loving it. Miss Spencer looked sick, and she started to sit down. I didn't like what she'd done, and I wanted to fix it, but I didn't want to punish her. "Mrs. Spencer, wait," I said. "Miss Spencer, is it true you're on the North Carolina Art Museum board?" Miss Spencer looked confused. Yes, I am." "And the Raleigh Race for the Cure Foundation board?" "Yes." "And the North Carolina State Opry Society board?" "Yes," she said. And my dad whistled a little cheer. "And you were the one who raised money for the new lower school playground for Shelburne Elementary," I said. "Well, yes. There were a lot of people involved with that, but I oversaw it, yes. Miss Spencer, would you say you're a good person? I asked. Miss Spencer swallowed like she was trying not to cry. Yes, she said, I'd like to think so. I think so too, I told her. I think you grew up to be a very nice person and a good mom and a good citizen, even though you read this book and said it was so bad 5 times when you were in 5th grade. Probably because for all the amazing things books can do, they can't make you a bad person. Miss Spencer sat down to wipe her eyes with a tissue. The room was quiet again, and everyone was still watching me. The chairman of the school board finally cleared his throat and spoke. Miss Ollinger, do you have anything else? Well, we do have a presentation about the First Amendment drawn by our challenge response coordinator, Trey McBride, I said. The chairman held up a hand. I don't think we need that. One of the other school board members leaned forward her mic. I think perhaps we do, Stan. She motioned for Trey to bring them the pictures, and he handed out the presentation he and I had created for Mr. Vaughn's class. The school board passed them around respectfully. What's this one with the Pope lifting weights? One of them asked. The free exercise of religion, Trey told them. I gave him an exasperated look. What? He said. It still works. They can do whatever they want in church, even if it's jerks and squats. Thank you, Mr. McBride, said the lady who'd asked for the pictures. He collected them all and came back to the podium, and we waited. The school board members knew they were in trouble. They either had to ban all the books we were challenging, or they had to ban none of them. Either way, they were going to look like idiots in front of these TV cameras. Mrs. Jones came to their rescue. She got up and joined us at the podium. I think I may have a solution, she said, if Miss Ollinger will cede some of her time to me. I nodded. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, not so long ago when I was the librarian at Shelburne Elementary, we had an official policy for book challenges. When a book was challenged, it went to a faculty committee for review, then to me, your hired representative, for a final decision. It was a fair and balanced system you yourselves designed and approved, and it was a system that protected everyone in the process. But none of the books that have been removed from Shelburne Elementary shelves ever went through that process. Not one. One or two of the school board members started to understand where she was going, even if I didn't. All this trouble began when the official request for reconsideration policy was abandoned and this board began arbitrarily removing books from the shelves. I humbly submit that we go back to the policy as set down in the school board's bylaws. In doing so, the books originally removed from Shelburne Elementary shelves will be returned, pending a full review by the faculty committee and a final decision by the school librarian. Then, if it's determined that these books are inappropriate for students of that age, they can be removed, and if not, Miss Jones trailed off. But we all knew what would happen, what was going to happen. The books would stay on the Shelburne Elementary shelves, and everyone who had banned them to begin with would be a great big do-over. And this time, they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Move to submit all challenged books through the reconsideration policy as set forth in the school board bylaws, one of the board members said. Second, 3 more of them said quickly. All those in favor? Asked the chairman. Aye, they all said quickly. He didn't even ask if there were any opposed. He banged his gavel and the room erupted in cheers. I grabbed up Danny and Trey and Rebecca in one big hug. I don't understand, Danny said. What's it mean? It means they made a motion during public comment time, which legally you're not supposed to do, Rebecca said. Oh, hush, I told her. I hopped up and down. It means we won. All right, last part of the book we'll read up next. It'll be really short, so I can't wait to find out what happens.